Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Monte Wolf Show. Degon alongside Wolf. We'll do some comments first. Let's start with the first one. No, we're not changing the name. There's only 2 more episodes left. Shut up. Next one was this one. It'll be one of those seasons where Beryl will make the World's Finals and no one can explain how it happened. Calling it right now, and that is bad news for T1. That is passives absiates. Unfortunately, someone's got to tell him the hard truth. He was wrong. Ramus. Yep. Let's see. What else? You say that it's Hatless Wolf, but is it really Wolf if he's not wearing a hat? Yeah, that was from last episode. Wolf wearing the LCK McDonald's limited edition hat. So another accurate comment there. There was one more. Let's see. Here it is. It's kind of cringe to me that you're tired of Gen.G T1 finals. You don't enjoy seeing the 2 best teams at the time going up against each other. Secondly, it's a different patch every time. And thirdly, it has frequently gone all 5 games. I think those are actually good points here, Wolf. What do you think?
I mean, it's as a commentator, sure, like it's the highest level, blah, blah, blah. Like it just happens to be that the storylines of the teams, which don't change their rosters up that much, are the same. It's like VX for T1. Like how many titles do they have? How many titles does Coma have? How many times is it Faker versus? I've just done it so many times that I like to. I'm like, can we talk about like BD and Kingzone Dragon X? Like, can we talk about Longzhu? Can we talk about like some of these other players like Peanuts history and storylines this time? And can we talk about, I don't know, like Doran's bouncing between different teams? This is like in the past, like I enjoyed the rivalry because I was like, it's gonna be big viewership, it's gonna be the hype matchup, it's the one everyone wants. And now I'm like, you know what? I want the one that I want. And like those points are valid in that like I do like watching the best League of Legends no matter what, and like whoever goes to the finals will be the best League of Legends no matter what, right? Like barring some like LCK Cup format stuff where we're like not 100% sure it's the best League of Legends that we could have gotten, but I think that when I also to showcase to fans who only watch the finals, because believe it or not, finals is the highest viewership. There are a lot of people who just watch the finals only, who've been watching LCK for like 10 years, and they're like, well, I'm an adult now, I don't have time to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning and watch LCK every day, but I will watch the finals to be like, oh damn, KT is good again, you know, whatever the case may be, because they don't know all the storylines. So I want to make KT roster as popular as T1 and Gen.G. Is that possible? Probably not. Is that gonna happen like in my lifetime? Probably not. But I would love for Hanwha Life to also be able to, every time they play, get T1 Gen.G numbers, you know? Like, that's how they get there, is to keep winning titles and get popular, and, you know. So if we just have the same 2 teams every time, then the league has no reason to exist, right? So,
yeah.
Come on, guys.
Perfect host synergy, because my next comment was TYH97 saying, man, after all this KT talk for what felt like an hour, you better hope they win not just the tournament but Worlds as well. They literally won a single best of 5 via game 5 to do a poor individual performances and bad drafting from the opposition team. It's all going to come crashing down to earth this week. Which is true, but also that upset did happen. The potential that KT make it to the finals is what it's about. The reality that Gen.G and T1 aren't in the finals is a reality. That's what it's about. That's what makes it fun. That's why we do talk about it for an hour, because it has been Gen.G, T1, and recently HLE with no true competitor. And although maybe the body of work of KT showing that maybe they're not a true competitor, them winning shows that they are a competitor. So like we have to contextualize it. That's why it takes that much time. On Nguyen saying T1 not making Worlds means LCK will get stomped by LPL this year. Lol. Sorry to break it to you, On Nguyen, Mr. T1 hater. They're going to Worlds. I guess that means LPL is in trouble again. Last one. Dow 5230 says, as a dedicated hate watcher of multiple teams, And KT being my favorite team every single year, this has been one of the best weeks of watching League it has been in years. I think last week was awesome, man. Last week was great, and it did set us up for just a
It was kind of a trash week this week. Yeah, no,
it wasn't trash.
Ended strong, but like otherwise, yeah, no, it was really good last week, and then everyone was like, "Wait a minute," and then this week was like, "Nah, let's go back to reality." It was not as good.
So to that point, that's kind of why we start the episode with the comments. It's like, all right, we gotta fill an hour and change here. Let's hear what the fans have to say. Thank you for everyone commenting. Appreciate it, and enjoyed the fact that y'all enjoyed last week as much as we did in setting up the storylines for the final week of the LCK in Lowell Park. Before we get into the matches themselves, there was a bit of outside events news kind of thing that happened.
Very small, like very little bit. Just like a one-off. You could say.
Yeah, like super cool. Like a little disappointing. I mean, if you're actually, I don't know. I just think it's cool. Let me pull it up on my phone so I can read it correctly, Wolf. I think I sent it to you, but on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, maybe Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. Tuesday of last week, DRX fans sent a truck to the DRX headquarters saying, basically, since winning the World Championships, our finishing position has been 9th, 6th, 9th, and 9th. We demand that the DRX CGO, Chief Gaming Officer, steps down. I can send it. I'll just, I don't know if you can full screen my camera or whatever, but it's there. There's the truck. They got trucked. And then here's slide number 2.
By the way, it's the budget truck.
It's
like there are different sizes of truck. This is the small truck that's like affordable and portable. It's do you guys remember the iPod Shuffle? It's the iPod Shuffle truck. Like it basically can like fit in your pocket, and mom's like, we do have the iPod at home, and you're like, no, but I wanted the big truck where I can really truck them. But
oh shit! It's just
It's these trucks are they're very affordable. Like I said, like they're about like 400,000 won last I checked. So like $250 through $280 USD, so something along that line to get one of these trucks to rent out for the day. And like it's pretty easy for the people who are the truck drivers, because they just have to put the message on. It's not even in like an LED screen. It's just like a light board, and they sit in the truck or chill out with a coffee and chain smoke cigarettes next to the truck for a day, and then they get paid. And like presumably they got like a full schedule, all month long, getting a couple $100 a day, just chilling out and doing whatever they want. I mean, they could be playing phone games, doesn't matter. It's an affordable thing you could do. There were mixed reactions to this truck. Like a lot of people made fun of it because it was just like, it's just one truck. Like what are you doing? You guys just have such a small fan base, nobody cares. You can only send one truck. Because if you look like the T1 headquarters during troubling times, you'll have 6, 7, 8 trucks. Lowell Park, same story. Well, the DRX headquarters just got one truck, and I was seeing like reactions from Korean fans being like, if it's one truck, if you see Gio and you're like walking out to have a cigarette, you're just like, let him truck, whatever. If you walk out and there's like 4, 5, 6 trucks, you're like, now it's kind of hard to get into the building without like noticing this. It's, I don't know. It felt to me like it's cool that they're passionate, but I think that they probably should have like gotten together and pulled a little bit more and did a little bit more, or just been like, you know what? I don't know if we truck this time. We didn't quite get the donations we needed. It was weird, Degon. It was kind of cute. To be honest, I think you should have been trucking the moment that roster was announced if you were concerned about where you were going to place, because we knew when we saw this lineup, it's like 7th place at best.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but like this is one of those years we talked about for DRX where it was a budget roster. We knew what its limits were.
Yeah.
Before the season started, Kanyang literally asked me to my face at a party we were at, what do you think? Be completely honest, what do you think our roster's potential is in terms of the standings? And I told him to his face, like probably like 7th place. And
that was kind.
That's just what you know with this roster. Like, I think obviously B&K overdid our expectations, right? Where our expectations were even lower for that roster. They did better, and like sometimes you can have a miracle run, but the fans are like, you know what? This roster was bad after the season's over, and like we need some leadership changes. I'm like, well, maybe you should have made some noise about that earlier instead of like after the season's completely done and like we're moving to the off season.
Yeah. I do wonder like what they're doing in the future, where they're going in the future. But the takeaway is not all fan bases are T1. What an absolute miracle run DRX's victory was. And trucking just doesn't hit if it's one truck. You're getting, you are, it's not, there has to be another word for it, right? Like it's like you said, the iPod shovel or the iPod.
Scale is just too small. Like it's just too small scale. If you didn't have the money to truck, I don't condone the funeral flowers. I think that's very disrespectful. But like, if you wanted to make a big statement, like you could get a lot of smaller things that made more, or you could show up in person with signs, like a protest, like what normal people do that support causes, instead of just buying one truck and being like, well, I'm basically angry tweeting their office and they have to see it when they go outside to buy coffee. Like, I don't know. I get it. I know they're upset and like they want to see changes, and like it was a disappointing year if you're hoping for a 2022 DRX World Championship level of upsets and subverting expectations. But that roster was not good, but it was definitely a little bit more potential, especially now what we know those players are capable of is way higher potential.
Who's your deft? Who's your deft this year? You could look at the roster and be like, I don't know, this Pioshik guy or this Zeka guy, spent some time in the LPL, but who's your deft? Deft was there. Barrow was there. Like that to me is that I don't know. That's where I think like the comparison for fans now and fans then being like, why aren't we doing it like we did then? It's very different. So we'll see what happens with DRX. I just thought that was unique because when we talk trucks, we talk T1, but DRX getting in there with the action. All right. Let's get to some of the series that happened this week. We will start with Hanwha Life KT because they had the upsets last week. They were the big talking points. And also, this was the most disappointing series here, Wolf. I think that's pretty fair to say. That
I think that's I think it's very, very fair to say. KT obviously coming off the high of beating Gen.G, and then everyone like that commenter said predicted like the the reality came crashing down in this series. I predicted KT Rollster partially because of like the meme, right? I wanted to kind of lean into it a little bit this week. I'll not be making that choice again. But anyway, the moment I stopped believing there was a real chance that KT could get it done with Cousin BDD was the moment I saw Perfect lock the Scion. I was like, nah, it's not gonna happen. I literally said I was on the analyst desk, and I was like, guys, I'm gonna go get a coffee, like in the middle of the draft, and there's TVs, by the way, all down Lol Park, like console. While you're walking through Lol Park, you can just look over and watch the drafting game. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go get a coffee, I'll watch it. I'm like, KT's just gonna slam Scion or some shit, and like it's definitely not gonna happen. And then they locked the Scion, and I was like, no, it's not. It's not happening. Actually, I was wrong already. And then they played a Scion Talia draft with Kaisa, And everyone knows how I feel about those types of drafts. I know a lot of other people have the opinion that you could just put Kai'Sa into any draft and it doesn't matter. Like there are people who still defend that Gumayusi Kai'Sa draft to the death, and I won't. But like people are out there still saying it was a good draft. I just thought this draft was like, obviously the Jarvan is broken as hell. The Aurora is actually really strong right now. Viper got his hands on Corki somehow, and it's like, well, this just isn't gonna work. And then you move into game 2, and I'm like, all right, well, surely Perfect's probably just gonna pick up the Rumble because we're just insanely hindered in draft by him, and then we lose the Pantheon Orianna, and then Sivir comes through. There's no Jarvan because it was picked in game 1, and like Hanwha just strategically better prepared. They don't have a player on their roster who is pulling them down with an anchor in terms of champion pool.
Yeah.
And it was just like it wasn't a real draft. Like we're running Trundle, Trundle and Annie and Leona. We're like, that'll be enough for the Jhin. It's not enough for the Jhin. It doesn't work. In game 3, ultimately, I think was the best draft of theirs, but like it's perfect on Cassante.
Perfante. That doesn't have the same ring as Keen Sante.
I think there's these moments for Perfect where we have these weeks for him, or like even just these individual match days where everyone's like, wait a minute, if he could play like this, maybe KT could go places. I'm like, he was playing Rumble Ambessa. Yeah. They're like, well, he was 9-0-3 on the Ambessa, and like I think maybe he's good. Maybe we were wrong. I'm like, he can play Rumble Ambessa. And then sometimes they put him on a Sion or a Cassante and tell him the weak side and hope for the best. Like, that's problematic, especially when you're playing a series where you're like not even deep in Fearless and you're already sacrificing in draft for him. Like, just put him on a normal pick. Like, put him on Gwen and hope he performs. Because if he can't do that stuff, then if he's not practicing Rek'Sai like everyone else is, for example, which is also another pick I think would suit his playstyle, then I am worried about your chances at Worlds. By the way, you might get like knocked out or knocked down by a non-Korean or non-Chinese team. Like I could see a team just run a circle, like FlyQuest can run circles around you maybe in draft if you are actually this hindered. So, I was disappointed. I think everyone's disappointed. I was not disappointed by Hanwha, who had a clean series, played very well. Viper's incredible, right? Peanut continues to be absorbing and finding pressure points and having good early pathing like we've known Peanut to, until very recently, always do, right? And it's almost like Peanut knows, okay, it's my last dance, if you want to put it in def terms. Like it's his last chance to lift another trophy, be in perfect form for Worlds. Something that really stood out to me about Peanut's interview that we did on the English side on the space that Degon did with him was that he said, there's a lot of things you want to do, but you have to know that you can't do those things actually, and you have to focus and you have to practice and you have to prepare. When everyone else, all your friends are going out and doing other stuff, and you want to be like, I want to live a normal life, you have to remember you're a pro gamer, and that life is not the life that you're going to live if you want to be the best and you want to be on the top. And I think Peanut's locked in right now, and he looks good. And I just think, if you're going to draft like this and Hanwha get to play what they want, like, of course they're going to 3-0 stomp you. That's what they should do if they're going to win the title.
Yeah. Just a reminder to everyone. KT was 3-9 going into the match against Gen.G, right? Their only wins were against Nongshim. So 9 series loss. So it's just, that's why it was incredible that they won. They were the team to beat Gen.G and create this chaos. And when you look back at the drafts, like they're similar. This is similar. Like it was a similar idea and plan that they had, especially when it went towards towards Perfect. So he didn't play let's see, the Ambessis, didn't get to play Ambessa, didn't play Renekton, it got banned away in game 3, didn't play, what's the last one? Yorick.
He does play
that
Renekton.
Was the other one that he played, right?
He didn't play any Udyr either,
So it's just, I said it before, I'm gonna say it again, and I still think I'm justified on this. I think he will be the worst top laner at Worlds, except maybe for Vivo Keat Stars top laner over for
I mean,
LTA South.
I think that's a little bit unfair. It's hard to quantify. We'll find out for sure. But like,
I don't think so.
He's playing in the LCK. He's playing the Legend group. Like, obviously, like the scale of like his champion pool problems. He might be like, oh, against this team, yeah, I can play Gwen. Like, he might be like, I'm confident here to do it, but I'm not confident to play against Zeus, Doran, Keen with my Gwen. So
I think it depends if Fnatic make it to Worlds. If young Poby can drag those boys there, then maybe Oscar Innen is worse than him. But even then, Oscar Innen has so much Worlds experience because the opposite team that could make it in is KC, and Kana is better than Perfect. Merwin is better than Perfect. Broken Blade is better than Perfect. Dokla, surprisingly, better than Perfect because Dokla knows how to do what Perfect needs to do better than what Perfect needs to do, which is play weak side, play for your team, don't be a hindrance, give up this wave. Like, I just, yeah. Like,
I mean, it was not a great series for Perfect against Hanwha, but like, if you look at his KDAs, like, is Scion 0-1-1, like very low impact, but was just kind of stuck in the side and couldn't actually join team fights very well, and that comp had big problems. 0-2-2 on Rumble. It's not like he went like 0-4, right, on this pick. Didn't get any kills. Ended up, the game was very one-sided. Didn't end up having any items. Like, he couldn't farm that much. It was not a great Rumble game, but it wasn't like he was running it down or getting obliterated, right? And then the Cassante game was arguably the worst of the three. And that's really unfortunate because I thought that draft was the best draft that KT had. It wasn't even an amazing draft because it's like Nocturne, Cassante, what are we doing? But the main issue I had with Perfect in this series was how the team was like, we got to make sure Perfect's on something stable and then we can start the draft. Like, that was like, that's to me how the drafts looked. And so that's the bigger hindrance, which to me doesn't say he's the worst top laner. It just means he has a champion pool issue. And I'm not ready to say that I think that he will get like bopped by other top laners at Worlds yet. Like, I think that, he's had some serviceable games on his champion pool. If teams research him and push him out of his comfort zone and then target him, like, then maybe he could be a liability at Worlds in terms of his individual play. But I think most teams will just be like, weird, this guy plays a lot of Rumble Scion. Like, and halfway through the tournament, people will be like, oh, I see this guy can only kind of play these. But like, we'll see. It depends on how much research goes and how much the coaches really look at KT's drafts and trends. Because obviously for us, it's so obvious because we've been casting this guy for multiple years and we've just had a whole year of KT roster kind of just putting him in that spot. So I still think it's a problem. I think it's a problem in their upcoming series, and I do think it could be a problem at Worlds. I'm not saying it's his worst top laner at Worlds problem, but like, it's going to be a problem when he faces LPL teams. It's going to be a problem when he inevitably faces LCK teams as well.
All right, 15 out of 17 for me. He is 15th out of 17th. Boal, that's the top laner for Vivo Keat Stars, and then I'll give you Hero 2, who is the top laner for Team Secret Wales, who made it to the finals, by the way, over Aji.
Yeah, no longer
that team.
No longer a secret, I guess. The Wales going to be quite public. Everyone's going to know. I saw that. I saw Secret Wales are going. I was like, so Secret Cat's out of the bag, huh?
Secret Cat's out of the bag. No sunglasses. TK Nguyen and the rest of GAM Esports. Levi not going to Worlds for the first time in a while.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy, and it's not great for what it means for viewership for that region as well for Worlds, sadly. Because we lost them. If T1 loses that play-ins match, we lose the T1 viewers. Some metrics watchers are kind of grabbing their desk a little tightly right now.
That's okay though. We will see them over at the recently announced 2025 Asia Invitational ASI, where they take the middle of the pack teams of the LPL, LCK, and LCP. So we get to see DPlus, FearX, and Nongshim, Vikings, GAM, Ninja in Pajamas do battle one more time. It looks like, is that right? My bros aren't going? What? That's crazy. I guess they invited the next three. I thought it was 4. It's just 3. Oh, you bums.
Yeah,
Why'd you have to lose
it's
to
not
Nongshim?
fair.
All
If they
right.
had just won that game,
If they would have just won
5.
that game. Yeah, fucking Palu. All right. The other I think 2 pieces for the KT stuff. I know that we harped on perfect a lot, and I know that I said we're going to go fast, but we're not. But because KT needs to show up there, I think Cuz and Peter rolled pretty low, right? I don't think Cuz had a really great series, partially because of the draft, as you said. But I do think that Peter had some rough engages. I remember some really big oohs in our analyst room when I was like, Peter, what are we doing, brother? And it's funny, right? Because the way that we view perfect, it's like, oh yeah, perfect. You just shit on him. With Peter, it's like, oh, Peter, come on, you're better than that. You shouldn't be doing that, man. Like, you chat him up, but I think Peter had a pretty terrible series on the Leona, on the Nautilus. It was kind of like,
It
oh
wasn't.
no, we're not in sync.
It's hard to like blame him completely, but yeah, there were some decisions he made that were not correct, and he's playing into Delight, who's had a big resurgence. We've had like these. I feel like last week was the week of like, oh, some junglers are back, and this is like the week of like, okay, support matters a lot. Support actually can be quite large. So
yeah. We saw how important it was in T1 and Gen.G. We also saw Rammus. Sorry, Barrel. We're going to keep milking this one until...
I don't want to go too deep on this, but I'm so sad for Chronicler. Okay, that's really what I want to say. I'm sad for Chronicler.
I'm sad for Atlas. Like, he's the Barrel guy. Like, DPlus as a team, Chronicler. But Barrel as my guy, that's Atlas. And it was just so painful.
I don't know what the concept was with this draft, but okay, yes I do actually. So let's talk about it. Like,
yeah,
we can gloss over the first few games because DPlus win in game 1. It's the whole like it's the thing where they win in game 1. It looks good. Game 2 barely lose. Game 3 get completely dunked on. Right, like that's kind of like the DPlus formula. But in this final game, the concept with this draft is you have single target, like you lock someone down with the binding from Morgana, and then everybody goes on said target. Like Naramis can help peel a little bit, obviously not great into the comp of T1 at all, really. But otherwise can peel, can follow up, can go in with the jungler, and you basically just pile on a single target, and you could peel for the Silas decently well with the Rammus. Like if he goes in, you like taunt him, then you bind him, then you shoot him with aiming, and then like aiming pulls his ult out, and like that's the concept, right? And you have the Morgana into the Annie, which has been kind of this rising counter pick that I'm not fully on board with, not myself like completely yet, but it was something that we first saw from Vikla and it's kind of been going around. But the problem is that this whole game was decided by what happened in the top side of the map in the lane swap, where Barrel just kind of continued to try to force it when this draft really didn't need to force it. Yeah, there's a scaling gangplank on the other side. I get it. That's a little bit scary. But the real story is about Gumiusi, who got incredibly fed because Barrel just kept running in, and like aiming was like aiming looked like he was like, I want to have no part of this shit. I didn't ask for this. I don't want the Rammus support. I'm just trying to play a Jin game. It's not my favorite champion. And like aiming did miss, by the way, a lot of flourishes. Like when Barrel did actually set up some taunts, like aiming just whiffed, and it's like, God, you guys are just not going to be able to make this work. It just became very clear early on, like, this is not that practiced. Barrel, supposedly, I've had some people send me some solo queue data, apparently has like over 100 games of Rammus support across the years.
Couldn't tell.
But for aiming and Barrel, this is like that was never scrimmed together ever. And it's like, if you win this game, you go to 5, maybe you can advance. Like, this is your world's qualification match. This is your make it to the next round of LCK match. And they pulled something out that clearly wasn't prepared. And it's, to me, some people might look at this go, this is such a D+ draft, like they are so experimental, they pulled out the Morgana and they were running Rammus. And for me, I'm like, no, this is a train wreck. Like, this is actually not prepared. This is the D+ that pulled out the cool weird picks will be stuff where Canyon's playing Karthus, right, in the old years. and you're like, damn, look at how much prep they put into this draft. This is actually so sick. And I look at this draft and I'm like, okay, I see it. Like, you hit someone with a binding and then everyone goes in and they die. Got it. Like, Silas is melee. You lock him down if he goes in. You can lock the Leona down if she tries to go in. You have the spell shield from Morgana. I see the loose concept, but like clearly it wasn't that practiced, right? And loses 1 in 7 on the Neferi this game. And T1 were, I think, probably looking at this draft going, what? Like, okay. And even Doran said he wasn't really practicing or preparing that Gangplank, but he had in his mind, he's like, I've played this a lot in the past. He's like, I got my image training, and I know how to play this and how to do this. And then he just blew them away with Gumayusi. And yes, there were some weird moments at the end of the game where, like, T1 kind of overextended a few times, and then the binding hits, and, like, they got stalled out for a bit. But the game was 100% over. And, like, it took maybe 5 extra minutes to end than it should have, but DPlus, they disappointed me super hard because I was hoping for a banger series here. I was hoping for another 5-gamer. I was hoping for something more. I wanted T1 to be tested a little bit more. I wanted to see what DPlus was capable of a little bit more, and we got this. And I didn't enjoy it. I don't think anybody really enjoyed it. I think T1 vaguely enjoyed it. Like, vague enjoyment.
I forgot who said it, whether it was the team interview or whether it was in our interview, but they asked about the Rammus support, and he was like, yeah, it was fun playing against Rammus support.
Yeah.
Like, they enjoyed seeing the unique pick. I think when I look at this draft, it's like, why do we have a game 5 draft in game 4? Like, we're kind of struggling for some picks, but we're not that struggling for picks. So yeah, this DPlus squad, I think they hit the roof, and I guess my biggest concern here, Wolf, is that it's another year of Showmaker regressing in the results in terms of placements. And I don't know, like, maybe, and you can really testament to this, maybe Keria is like the other player that looks exhausted. Maybe Pioshik, I think, is another one that looks exhausted during when we see them at LCK, especially in rounds like 4 and 5. They look fucking tired, but no one looks as tired as Showmaker. Nobody looks as Peanut's up there as well, but like Showmaker always looks like I'm giving this my all. When we bring him for interviews, when we Chronicler wanted to take a picture with him, he was very kind and very generous with his time and his energy. But as soon as like the action was done, I'm waiting for my time to speak, he just looks so tired, and I just worry about how much gas he has in the tank. And obviously it's done now, so he has time to start recharging, and I'm sure it'll take like 2 or 3 weeks to like fully unwind from the year, and then miss league for a little bit, and then you get into next year. But it just feels like another year of not utilizing Showmaker to his potential, with trying to find parts that work. And I think you did with Chiwu and Lucid. And I think you gotta go back to the drawing board with your bot lane for the second year in a row.
If you open up the GCD, because a lot of people I think are like always with Showmaker, like, oh, he looks tired, he looks burnt out, looks like he's ready to retire, but he signed for 3 more years. And it's like, well, that next year is the last year, right? Like, it's 2026 at Post Worlds is when his contract expires. And then we'll see what happens after that. If you look at the top side, like, Lucid is signed until next year as well. Shiyu is signed until 2027. And with the way the market is for top laners right now, we've talked about players like Kana could maybe come back on this show a lot, but like, I don't think you're replacing Shiyu. I think that top side is locked in. Beryl basically not hard confirmed, but soft confirmed to retire after this season. Like, that might have been the last game Beryl ever plays. Like, that's crazy to me. Well, I guess maybe he has the ASI, so that'll be the game he ever plays, potentially, but the last LCK game. And then Aiming is also set to leave the team, his contract expires, so could be re-signed, could leave the team after this year as well. So I don't know what's going to change, but we know the top side's going to stay the same. But one thing that's been consistent, like you mentioned, is Showmaker, like his placement from like world champion to like semis to quarters, like the drop off is there. But also his rosters have not been as strong as they were. Like his rosters keep getting gutted and keep going down, and it keeps being like one more potential player comes and Lucid's there, but then also she was there, but they're still pretty young, and then Barrel's back. Maybe that'll fix the shot calling problems, but the rosters just have not been as robust as they were back when it was Ghost and Barrel is one of the best bottom lanes. Now it's Aiming and Barrel, and it's like, well, it's the best bottom lane in the Legend group, or sorry, in the Rise group. But yeah, it's just a very different setup that he's dealing with than what he used to in the past, and he also knows his own individual performances have declined as well. So I don't know what's going to happen to DPlus in the future, and like I don't know what DPlus, let's just say 2027 DPlus, what does that look like? You know, what does that look like with no Showmaker potentially? Like, do they just completely rebuild the whole thing? Do they go budget? Like, what happens? And I think that's why people who are really DPlus fans, people who really look at these numbers and the contract expirations of the bottom lane and go, well, we're keeping the top side. I'm not sure about that. Like, what happens post Showmaker? Are probably worried about like this could have been the last big angle, maybe, if they were able to perform well to then like make another Worlds run. Maybe they don't make Worlds again next year too, and then it's like, well, Showmaker's gone, and now all the parts of the, because let's be fair, most DPlus fans are fans from Damwon when they won the World Championship. Like a lot of fans joined at that time, like just like DRX fans. DRX very popular still, despite their poor results, because of that amazing run. Even though only all parts of that roster are gone and they've kind of split across other teams. Showmaker's the only piece left, really. Barrel is there, right? But he wasn't for many seasons, and now he's gone. So you're like, if Showmaker leaves and we don't accomplish anything, am I going to jump ship to another team? Like, what do I do as a DPlus fan? Because there's no reason anymore that I started following this team left. And they also like rebranded and changed the name. And, you know, there's a lot of different reasons why DPlus fans are kind of like on their last, they're on their last straw, Degon.
Yeah. And I just hope that Showmaker isn't on his last straw. Like, I hope that the growth that they showed this year it continues to move forward, and they can crack into that top 4 and top 3 and make a Hanwha Life like move, right? Because, you know, it was the Zeka Kingen roster after in 2023, and then they're like, all right, well, we need to move on from Kingen. We get Doran in 2024, and then they get the pieces together with Viper there, and it's like, oh, this is pretty good. And then now they are the, you know, the household names here in the LCK. That's something that maybe DPlus can do here with Showmaker, Shiwu, and Lucid, because I think you opt into a specific style of play with both Barrel and Aiming. Barrel, you know, mad scientisty, and Aiming, the Gold King. Like, those are two very specific type of players. So who both have I guess you expected to have like a high floor, but turns out Barrel's floor was pretty low in the middle of the season, and then Aiming just doesn't have the clutch factor. So we'll see what they do in the future. All right. Now we talked a lot of DPlus and not a lot of T1 before in that last series. But before we get into more T1, both in that series, but more importantly in the Gen.G series, that was a great best of 5. It's time to remind you about our friends over at Factor. Now, between busy schedules and summer plans, sometimes all you got is a couple of minutes. Factor helps you eat smarter with tasty, chef-prepped meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to your door. And now with more than 65 weekly meals made for how you live and what you like, you've got more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes you. Now, Factor has a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. And you can enjoy even more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. And for the first time, try Asian inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. From more choices to better nutrition. That's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel a difference no matter what your routine is. So head on over to factormeals.com/MontyWolf50off and use the code MontyWolf50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code MontyWolf50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto renewing subscription purchase. Thanks to our friends over at Factor for all of you a little too busy but picky eaters. They got you covered. Okay. Time for some T1 Gen.G. Man.
All right.
A
This
match
series.
for finals, dude. That was yesterday for us. What a series.
So
it was a great game 1, a great game 5, and stuff in between.
yeah, that is, I think, the best way to describe it, isn't it? Game 1 was, like, we've talked about T1's drafting a lot. There wasn't an unplayable draft for T1, but the Orianna, which doesn't have a consistent ball carrier in this draft, like, you could put it on Poppy, right? Like, Faker could flash in itself, sure. You have the Xinjiao that can kind of go in, and the Ambessa might be your best bet, but like, it's hard to utilize her the same way as you use a lot of other ball carriers. She's quite dashy, quite mobile, right? So you could get into the back line and do it, but it's hard to find value at this draft if you lose control ever, because it's so reliant on controlling space with the Orianna and setting up ultimates and then having Guma clean up house, right? And it requires you to be massively ahead. Now, that did happen. T1 were massively ahead. Doran was accelerated in the top lane. Owner had a fantastic early game, was making huge impacts, and it looked like, okay, T1's got this one. And I was like thinking, the only thing I could think about for some reason was, man, that must be rough for Chovy loses perfect record on the Galileo. Like, this is so crazy. Like, I was like, man, if there's anything we lose, like, it's that. Like, this is going to be a great series. I predicted Gen.G. I was like, T1 winning is great. Like, it means we've got a series probably. But I was like, Chovy's not even playing badly. Like, he was pushed back in the lane by Faker early. Faker had a good laning phase. But, like, I was like, I can't believe Chovy's going to lose his perfect record. That's crazy. And then Faker had that TP call to try to defend the turret in mid. And then T1 had to try to, like, double down on saving that play, but they have a Poppy, and it didn't work, and they got completely destroyed there, and Gen.G was back in the game, and then the Yunara was online, and the Camille got the kill in the side lane right before that, and got 1,000 gold shut down, and it was just like, oh, yeah, Gen.G's comp scales. Yeah, they scale really well. They have insane side lane pressure. They have insane engage and peel for the hyper carry. The hyperest of the hyper carries, Yunara. Yeah. So, like, T1, you make one mistake, and then, okay, you lose the game, right? And this is kind of like, it's not like it was a bad draft for T1, but you can't stop winning at any point or you lose. And they made the one mistake. That's all it takes. And then I kind of wanted to gloss over the next two games, but I want to talk about the Kiana. And I know there were a lot of people and people they were not happy that I said that the Kiana was the problem with this draft. And I first of all, I never said that. Just said that I don't think you should draft Kiana this early in the draft. I don't think you should play Kiana in the LCK. I think that most LCK teams know how to deal with Kiana. She's not a good pick here because we don't brawl like the LPL does. We don't fight that way. Our junglers aren't built that way. We play engage CC junglers where you go, I'm going to CC that guy and buy some space to either peel for my AD carry or kill someone. We don't do the I press all my buttons, blow somebody up, or have this big wombo and team fight jungles. Like, there are a few jungle players like that, or our Diana specialists, those types of people, but we don't really do that here at the LCK. We don't really play that style. We don't play for the most part, Kane in the LCK or Talon. We don't do that. We don't play Zed. We recently started playing Zed. I'm like, no one's playing Zed right now anymore. Have a Trundle counter pick, but it wasn't working that well. We don't really do the Zed anymore. So I thought, okay, this has to be a draft where you have to fight constantly. Unfortunately, they have Sion Jin, remember the last Kiana draft where Owner played it and they played it into Viper's Smolder. They had that really cool Grubs fight. They played really well around their Yunara. Like it was Gumos playing Yunara, and it's like an 80 carry that allows you to scrap. Like you have that setup with a Kiana. You're like, oh, I am fighting. I do a ton of damage. Like I'm actually ready to fight you right now on Grubs. Like I'm ready to all in this whole game on Grubs. Like that's a LPL Kiana draft right there. This one is not. And then Canyon was 2-0. Was able to get some punishes onto T1 and then did nothing. My favorite part was when he tried to kill Faker, and Faker just like looked at him and was like,
that was
"Yeah,
so
okay,
bad.
whatever."
It was so bad.
The real story of this game, though, as the people who are mad at me because I talked about Kiana a lot, because I was rage watching, I was hate watching the Kiana a little bit. A lot of people were upset that I didn't talk more about, which is fair, the fact that Owner and Keria popped the fuck off this game. Keria's Alistair was actually insane from level 1, and he actually had an insane performance. And then Owner, obviously, on the Jarvan that they shouldn't have given with the, oh, don't worry, we have the answer in the Kiana, was, this game was a disaster. Like, Dorian got the Aatrox counter pick into the Scion. Like, T1 got everything here. And I saw some people say, which I thought was really hard cope, but, like, some people were like, well, now, like, all these picks are gone, so Gen.G doesn't have to deal with them anymore. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty cope take, but like it makes me feel slightly better about the fact that T1 got all these insane picks, the Rise, the Jarvan, and like maybe Gen.G could have just picked some of those picks themselves and maybe done things a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, that game was one-sided. We went into the next game where Canyon had arguably an even worse performance on the Pantheon. And Faker was actually, like, he was MVP. If we had a POG for Game 3, it would have been Faker, who just chased Chovy around the map on the Talia and constantly had his rocks into shove set up perfectly, kept stealing Chovy's flashes away, never let the Ahri side lane, never let the Ahri get online. Chovy's still 50 CS ahead, by the way, at the end of the game. He was trying super hard to farm up and be relevant. Never was relevant in the team fights, was playing into Wukong and the Sivir, so trying to get a charm target is very difficult. He charmed a clone on the Otacon fight, I believe, and was trying to get onto Guma, but it's just such a challenge. That draft for Gen.G didn't give them a lot of outs. The Xayah pick was also kind of a question mark for me because it doesn't follow up super well on the CC, single CC they have with the Pantheon Ahri incredibly well. And then they had like the team fight ults from Duro, but when they were behind, which they were constantly in the game, and they were constantly being out-tempoed, we never saw Cannon really ride that global Pantheon to control sides, even though they had the Gwen. Like, it just never came online the way that they wanted to. Like, every single big ultimate from Duro was non-consequential because it was just trying to buy time for the rest of his teammates to get out. Like, they were never able to control the space in that game. And Canyon's performance in some of those big fights, and like the Otacon, for example, where he tried to push the fight on the top site and didn't smite the Otacon, wasn't even in range for it, and it just went over for free. It was just not a good game from Canyon. It was not a good game from Gen.G. It was not a cohesive draft. It wasn't a terrible draft, but it wasn't cohesive. And like at that point, we were like, this series is done. I guess it's just the T1 win and upset.
That was exactly what I was thinking at that point, because then it allowed you to go back to game 1 and be like, man, T1 were in control of that game. They were in control until they weren't, right? Until Duro made a heroic play in that macro masterclass of baiting Baron to go get the Drake to prevent Soul. Like, that was a great macro play, but before that, T1 were in control. They were in the lead. They had the gold lead. Game 2, they were in the lead. They had the gold lead. This game, they're in the lead. The Otacon fight is early enough where, Gen.G had a very good chance, but T1 were leading at that time. And to see how disjointed Gen.G were with the focus, it wasn't on Otacon. We were kind of protecting Ruler. Keen was 1v3 by himself. Duro got a one-man ult, only one-man ult, and no one followed up on it. Like, it was like, this was another moment of, this is not good, Gen.G, and Canyon is asleep, and you're running out of games to give. You have no more games to give. You have no more games to see if he wakes up. And I think even if we go to game 4, where Canyon goes 11-1-15, kind of ran the game, he wasn't the main point of that game. Duro was the main point of that game. He was the beneficiary of Duro roaming around the map and really hand-feeding a lot of these kills to his teammates, especially late. Like, he was landing some god hooks. I think there was a hook in the mid lane on Faker where Faker, like, he was on Twisted Fate, and Faker's like body clipped. It was one of those solo queue-esque hooks where you're like, what in the fuck was that? I swear I was behind a minion. It was awesome. But again, that wasn't a Canyon game. And I think that's where you're like, okay, this was a draft where I thought Chovy was going to take the Twisted Fate in game in game 4 on pick 4. It was all right. Gen.G is going to take Twisted Fate. They're clearly going to focus down on the bottom side of the map with that Callista Blitzcrank into the Varus Renata. Let's get that bot lane going. But instead, they take who do they take? Did they take the? They took the Skarner or the Cassante. I forgot who they took. They took either one of those. They waited on mid lane, and then Faker takes the Twisted Fate away. And I was like, ooh. They go with the Cassiopeia, and then from there, Duro just is boss of the game, and then Canyon is beneficiary.
With the Renata pick away, the only viable option I felt was the Blitzcrank, which I mentioned when we were casting that draft, and I was like, I don't think it's Pyke. Like, please don't. I don't think that's the angle.
It's not Pyke because they have Silas, so like you don't want to give that. Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, beyond like even that's kind of like something you don't want to give, but. Obviously, Owner had some nice attempts with the stolen Blitzcrank ultimate as well to try to turn that game around. But the thing about the Pyke is it just doesn't have the range to deal with the Renata. And if you like miss a hook, it's like, well, cool, whatever. We might take some damage. We can kind of back off and reset. But if you're Pyke, you mess that up, like you might get hand shook in and then you just die. Like you're so squishy as well. And the comp needed, I think, some long range grab potential, right? And obviously you can, because you have the Callista, go super deep with the Blitzcrank in the mid and late game, and then if you miss the hook or mess it up, like they can pull you back with Fate's Call. So it's a really cool combo there. But the story of this game was like, I was like, there needs to be damage or the story of the draft was there needs to be damage for Chovy. And like the Kassadin pick was like looming. We were like, is he really gonna do it? Like, is he actually so bold? Is he so crazy? But it does scale. We need damage. It needs to be damage. And then they locked in the Cassiopeia, Chovy's first time ever playing the pick professionally, which is insane. It's not that insane considering she wasn't very meta for most of his career, but still, almost everyone else has played it this season at one point into Rise. And then they just brawled constantly, tried to fish for hooks, and fought. And T1 made a big mistake committing to that topside play, where they gave over so much gold. And Ruler got insanely fed. Chovy got insanely fed off of a few skirmishes that T1 opted into. Even though they have some elements of scaling in their draft, they went for lethal tempo on Varus. They can cut through the tanks. And T1 just kind of ran into Gen.G and opted into those fights. Remember Faker's gold card fight in the river where he went forward with Owner trying to steal the Impale and trying to make that fight work. That also backfired for T1. And then Ruler was like, all right, you guys could just push top and fight constantly, fight over Otacon position there. I'm just going to push mid. And Ruler just constantly was like, I'm pushing mid. No one can answer me alone. And if they bring more people down, then the Cassiopeia in the side just takes over. Chovy's like 1v2ing in the side lane. And T1 kind of gifted Gen.G the ability to be massively fed. Cannon gets a ton of kills in this game at the end, but it wasn't the kills in the beginning of the game. It was at the very end where he was like ending the game by himself and sniping people. It was so difficult to kill. And like, I think if T1 had played this a little bit more measured, hadn't all in on a lot of those fights, they probably could have won this game. Or at least it would have been a playable game. So when you consider T1 almost won game 1, should have won arguably game 1, could have won game 4 here if a few things go differently, right? A few of those Blitzcrank hooks don't hit, a few of those fights don't get opted into. The series could have gone very differently. And that was the moment though where we're like, okay, Canyon woke up, air quotes, he's back, he's back and ready. We had Duro take over the game, it was all about him, right, with his Blitzcrank. And then he still didn't get player of the match because Vex happened in game 5.
Yeah. Again, like I feel like the first professional match of Cassiopeia by Chovy goes so under the radar because Vex gets pulled out by him. We listed out on the space all the potential mid and jungle picks that were there, and we definitely didn't list Vex. Like I thought maybe like my weird pick that no one's pulled out yet, like a Malzahar, because we keep talking about, hey, there is no engage there. And I'm like, Malzahar, you just frickin' hold him in place. That's engage. Burst him down. But also, if you land the ulti with the Vex, that's engaged too, especially if you get snowballing. And so that was just a great pick, a great prep, because Faker pulls out Yone and you're like, that was more of like a takeaway than, oh, this brings me joy to see. Like T1 fans know Faker's Yone, not great. It's not, yeah, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like if they picked Yone, Zeus would have been a better Yone player from years past than Faker.
Yeah, I mean
But they take
that's
it
what did
away.
happen. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
what did happen. Like that's why a lot of people found it really ironic that Faker chose Yone as his world skin, because it's been historically one of the champs that he avoids playing, and in the rare games where he does play it, it looks like this, right? And then Chovy has this counter pick where he just outranges him because he's Vex and just harasses him and stopped his back like what 5 times,
Yeah.
and just constantly annoyed Faker. And also, I feel like the Yone didn't really suit this otherwise poke-oriented composition. There was a lot of poke and a lot of burst, but there was no like, all right, we'll finish this. We'll lock this up. We'll clean it up. Like if he was playing, let's say for example, Tristana, and then like Ziggs bombs go through, Owner's ripping through, and then Faker gets like a reset. That could have been a pick they could have gone for, but instead they go for the Yone, which is like this draft had so many flexes, right? We're like, is the Maokai jungle? Is it support? Is the Ziggs mid? Is it AD carry? We knew it was probably going to be AD carry, but then we're like, okay, wait, hold on. Is Jace mid? Is it going to be Yone top? Like all these things were possibilities in this draft, and then they just went for the standard lineup, with the exception of the Maokai, which again with this draft we expected to be support. Once the Lilia came through, we knew, and then T1 just had a draft that like. It was like a trick, but there was no like prestige. There was no like punchline to the to the trick. Like he was like, and now I'll pull the Yone out of the hat. We're like, no one wants to see that. Like I don't know.
I feel like that's just a Simpsons skit of like they're up there and it's like boo. Oh man.
It's just like eventually we're waiting for the punchline of this draft. You know what I mean? Like we're like, yeah. No, I think I'm trying. I kind of see where you're going. Maybe there's something I don't quite see. No, you just kind of like held up 5 flex picks and then you were like, yeah, and this is the draft, or 4 flex picks. But I mean, Lilia did get played top once upon a time, but not anymore.
No.
And then the game happened, right? Obviously, and then the Nocturne was so powerful in this draft because it was so difficult to outplay the Rakan ultimates, the Ornn horns, the Chovy ultimates. The Chovy just got so fed. He was the only one that had a gold lead for a while, and it started to feel like, okay, maybe T1 can kind of finesse this. Like they've got a lot of poke. It's only Chovy who's big, and then they just messed up the fights. Like Guma Ziggs gets caught by Vex or Rakan or everybody, like, and he's isolated. They didn't play around him. Keria didn't stick on top of him. And the Maokai is so good at shutting down comps like this, if they're not champs that can fly over or past his ultimate or just circumvent him entirely. Like when you have a bunch of melees, Maokai's like, cool, Ziggs is free, Jace is free. You can't get to those guys because I won't let you. But then in these team fights, like they got on top of the Ziggs. They kept killing Guma or pushing him away. Doran also collapsed upon multiple times in those fights. And T1 just kind of ran into Gen.G's setups sometimes.
Yeah.
When they had the poke, instead of poking, they kind of like were like Faker's looking for an angle, Maokai's going in, and then like Duro's like, but I'm Rakan, you guys are all standing in the same place. And then Ornn drops his ultimate. It's just the fights when we got to real team fights where T1 like the pressure was on, they could not coordinate, they could not execute the draft.
There were two fights that jump out at me. One was at the Drake where everyone is so low. Like they fought it really well. Both teams fought it really well, but everyone was so low on Gen.G's side. But Guma was so far back, he couldn't get the bouncing bombs in. Faker's ult hits, I think, only Chovy, but doesn't do enough damage after the ult hits, so he detaches, and they're all running away. And it's like what you said, there was no finishing blow, right? If Guma throws his ult out there that on Ziggs, that's it. Like that's your long reach damage. You don't have anyone else because Doran was kind of going in first with Keria and he got blown up and Gen.G scampered away. Then there was a fight on the top side river where like no one is peeling for, like, you want the Ziggs to kind of have like this clump in front of him in the fight in front of him, and he just throws bombs in. And instead, it's just a segregated fight. It's like fights on multiple fronts, and the Ziggs, if he focuses one side, you have to worry about the engage coming from the other. You don't want multiple front fights if you're Ziggs. And I just feel like T1 created those situations. They didn't simplify the fights for Guma. And it goes back to what keeps happening when Guma isn't playing a Jinx or these hyper carries that he can normally play. It's multi-front fights. And now I feel some of the frustration that, like, as an AD carry, I'm watching this, I'm like, I have to pick one and hope that I'm right. But I feel like I'm not being given the resources to be protected here. I'm not giving the resources to make the fight simple. Like,
yeah,
I have to worry about the Nocturne. I have to worry about the Vex. I have to worry about the Rakan. And we're like all split up and I'm by myself.
They had a multi-threat composition where all of their threats are squishy, right? Like it's really like triple threat here. You could argue almost even 4, right? With Faker being like kind of a threat as well. Although with the game state and the lane state that he was in, like he wasn't ever really a threat. But you know what I mean? Like Owner could do a lot of damage. Like Owner is that consistent damage. Like we saw that one fight where he flashed over the wall, the dragon fight you were talking about, where everyone's low, and it's like maybe he could get it done, but he's squishy, right? So like eventually he dies if he tries to go and make those plays if they're not massively ahead. And like Doran is like somebody's trying to look at this off angle, like you're saying, and Guma is trying to be alone and try to find this other cross angle where they can find poke damage. And so what happens is T1 are just a bunch of isolated targets. And if everyone ults one of those targets, like if like let's say Canyon and Chovy and Keen only ult Doran and like use everything on him, and everyone else is nearby, then you're like, cool, now we have all these other threats. So Yone re-engages, Owner goes to sleep, Guma's dropping bombs on people, like you can win those fights. Same if you picked anybody. Everyone goes on to Lilia, whatever. You can turn those fights, but Gen.G didn't do that. They didn't have to because everyone was so split and disjointed that, like, Chovy ults one person, everyone follows up without using their other tools, and then when T1 tried to turn, they're like, okay, and the next one is Doran, and then the next one is Owner, and we kill them one by one. They're all squishy. They don't have that damage throughput to, even though health bars got low in those exchanges, finish anybody off. So they played it decently well around some of the early objectives, but once they started to lose the team fights, because with like the real team fights, over like the hard team fights on objectives, it was just over. And it felt like a one-sided game because of that, even though if you look back to like the very early game and like the beginning of the mid game, it was only Chovy who was ahead. And it looked like maybe T1 could pull this off. But again, execution, the burden there was maybe a bit too high for a draft that didn't seem practiced. Coach Kim came out and said, Chovy did not prepare this. He was just like, yeah, I'll play it, and locked it in. Like, this was not prepared. He was just like, I think this is good here. I'm going to play it. And that's Chovy, right? Like, that's why this guy got MVP. I mean, one of many reasons.
Yeah. Another thing that kind of happened here, Wolf, in this game 5 was at the very beginning of it. We built up the stakes. We had silver scrapes. The phones were out. At 2 minutes and 59 seconds, a thing happened which led to a pause at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And I mean, you were on the desk, so I'll leave it to you. There was a pause. A pause happens at 3 minutes, 20 seconds. And the pause, actually, I didn't time the pause. I don't even remember how long it was, but it felt like a long time. And I think it was the longest pause of this year.
Yeah, I think it was like 20 minutes, something like that. Maybe it was more, but it felt like about 20 minutes. We've definitely had way worse pauses, but I think this was like the biggest pause. You know, weirdly enough, I'll mention this story. I told both Atlas and G-Sun. I have a weird feeling there's going to be like a controversial pause today.
Yeah, you did say that. You did say that.
A while since we had one, and they were like, "Don't jinx it." I'm like, "Okay, it's not going to happen." As we got deeper in the series, I was like, "Oh, it wasn't going to happen," and then it did happen. So the reason why, so we saw this with Viper and Delight, where Delight, there was a moment where he realized, oh, okay, the penalties applied, and then he went and ganked mid, and it was actually a very successful gank. In their series where Viper popularized this level 1 solo lane swap, we're not calling the Viper swap. And Duro was not aware that with the debuff that's applied, when you do hit lane swap, when lane swap is detected and you actually hit that minion, it's applied for 20 seconds, and so it applies till after 30 minutes. So when we were casting this, we were not looking at that specific moment. The observers were looking at something else, but it was reasonable to assume that it was a lane swap thing. That was probably the cause of the pause, because Duro was the one who paused. We knew that this Delight had the lane swap apply in the previous series with Hanwha and T1. But no one was able to tell or communicate that to me in Atlas, so I felt in that moment it was frustrating to speculate. And then we had Atlas was texting Cadrill, who was looking into it and trying to figure it out. And I just want to say, I think we don't talk about this that often these days because we don't have a lot of tech pauses, and when we do, the league is way more transparent than it used to be. We used to have kind of a policy of we cannot share anything, and the fans will be mad, and it's too fucking bad for them because we're not going to share anything with you guys. Now we've moved to a more transparent model where we put the graphic up and we usually put updates through. But today or yesterday we did not put any updates up. No one mentioned investigating lane swap bug or anything like that. And then eventually everyone was just told it was not a bug. We were told, okay, he's investigating a bug, and then we're it's not a bug. And that was the end of it. And I think global fans were able to kind of suss it out through Cadrill, and people were able to figure out what was happening for the most part. Atlas and I didn't want to speculate too much because we're on the official broadcast, but we knew it was probably lane swap related. And the Korean fans, though, were very upset and didn't understand what was happening, and they were not given as much. Maybe I don't know 100% because I didn't watch the broadcast back, but it seemed like most of them didn't get it, or were not given the same information about the bug that even occurred at all, or maybe lane swap wasn't even discussed on the official Korean broadcast. I don't know. I'm sure if you watch Wolf's stream or something, he was probably going in on it.
He was.
Had a lot of
he was.
And so,
yeah, when Jin told us he was.
Yeah, so I mean that makes sense to me, right? And when you look at how let's say the NFL handles flags, when the ref comes out to explain what happened, what the penalty is going to be, he goes out and speaks to the audience and to the people watching on TV, holding, blah blah blah, number 42, it's a 5-yard penalty, 10-yard penalty, that kind of thing comes out, makes an official statement, and then the game resumes, right? This was obviously not a penalty and I guess technically it was a penalty, but you know what I mean? This is not a player is getting penalized by the league. It was just in-game penalty. And there's no the fans are gonna be oh, I can't believe the ref decided that, because it's not a ref decision. It's just how the game works, and had to be explained, and Duro thought it was a bug, so he was wrong, and he's not going to be penalized for that in this case, although perhaps if you repeatedly did that in a series, I think the rules do start to penalize you there. But I felt there was not a lot of transparency about what happened. And in the old days, at OGN and in StarCraft, the refs would often come on the stage like NFL refs and actually tell the audience out loud, this is the reason why there was a pause. We took these steps to investigate it. Here's the end result. And sometimes in StarCraft, 1, it would be he auto loses because he actually broke the rules or whatever. That would happen. Or the result would be, we've decided, because there's no way we didn't have chrono break in those games back in the day. They'd be we've decided to award the win to this player because of the game state. We've discussed it heavily. This is our decision, right? Instead, we just go, it's not a bug, and we resumed. And I think there's something missed here. And I think that the LCK could learn from these types of experiences and try to make a lot more clarity about this situation, because it is a very niche thing.
Yeah.
And even a pro player like Duro misunderstood the interaction very slightly, right? But he misunderstood the interaction. And fans walked away from this being a little bit confused, especially on the Korean side. And I think that if they had lost the game, people would be angry about it because they didn't understand. I'm not saying your average fan would be, but there would be some people who would be angry because they were not fully told whether it was a bug or not. And there's a lot of speculation because people are just writing anything on the internet because they don't know what's going on, but they think something's going on, and they're saying this and that. And I think it would have been really cool for Riot to make an official statement. I think in situations like this that get a little bit weird, there probably needs to be a little bit more transparency about what's happening. Because as a commentator, I knew there was probably something that happened, but because they didn't go and show the replay, because you could also, by the way, show the replay and be this is the moment he last hit the minion, this is the in-game clock, this is why this happened. He thought it was a bug, but it wasn't, and you could explain that very quickly in the early game where nothing's happening. and then just go back to business as usual. But because someone told me he says it's a bug, it wasn't a bug. I don't actually know what happened. I can't go back and look. I'm casting, I'm looking at fan signs, I'm buying time. So I feel like as a commentator, I feel almost guilty that I can't tell people what actually went down. And then when the game is over, I see all the information. I see our group chat has like 100 messages and like everyone's breaking it down, and you guys were able to do all that stuff in the space, but there was no official recognition that of what occurred, except he said bug, it wasn't bug. Continue. And I felt like we missed something there.
Yeah, I think I think it is, and this is, you can help me with this, kind of just explaining the Korean culture. It is a big accountability ask of like someone to have that role. Like head referee now also has to make these statements and slap their name on there and say head referee, but that's what it's for. Like that's part of the role, in my opinion. Like you're there for that. You don't just do it in anonymity. Like you do it because you are the head referee and you take on that responsibility. You're the commissioner of the LCK, whatever it is. I think that's fine. And I don't even think you have to come out to the audience to do that, but you have to write a,
You
you
can put a lower
should
third up,
write
or
a statement.
or tell or write something for the casters to
Yes.
say, and
Yes.
show a replay of the moment. Like that's what
Yes.
sports do, right? Like you show a replay, you explain it, you don't hide it. I
Right.
feel like there's a lot of hiding going on for these types of things. And this is not a bug that's abusable or something like that. Sometimes if a player had used an exploit, for example, that's illegal, or didn't know it was illegal, or thought it was just normal, and then I can understand why Riot or LCK wouldn't want to show that exploit because it's like not that known. And then solo queue players could abuse it, right? That's the kind of thing that you don't want to show. And I understand that. And in those cases, you could make a statement so simply as he used an exploit that we won't be sharing officially on the broadcast, but here's the end result. And so like the referee and the accountability thing, I understand because no one wants to be held accountable. But what ends up being is if you have someone who's like, I'm down to be accountable, you can blame me if you don't like the decision. It allows people to be that person to absorb the pressure of the fans who don't like the decision, because that's their job to do so, which means they need to make good decisions, right? And that person gets held accountable. If he makes wrong decisions, let's say he, for example, makes wrong decisions several times in a row, and like Riot doesn't like that he doesn't have the mastery or understanding of the game because he misread these situations and fans are mad, then Riot has the opportunity to fire someone and then get a new person. But instead, this was not very controversial, but imagine something that was way more controversial, that decided this whole series, that decided whether T1 was advancing or not, happens in a game like this and no one gets held accountable. Then who gets held accountable? The whole league, right? Then the fans are mad at LCK. LCK fucked up. LCK is a joke league, right? And that's where it's like, oh shit, like that, we don't want that. But if you get to a bigger situation, that is what people will say, instead of this person in particular or this team of referees misread the situation, and then LCK has the opportunity to make a statement like, our refs misunderstood, we're suspending them or firing them or whatever the case may be, right? So it's okay today. It's not the end of the world today, but it does make you wonder, should we be more transparent? Should we be revealing more? Should we be doing replays and stuff like that? I think personally, yes. But, this is again not something that is game changing, really. A cannon was missed, which became a meme later on. A cannon was missed because of this. But like, ultimately Gen.G still won. I think if it was a bug that happened in a game deciding team fight, that would have been different.
Yeah.
Like we did the Zeus teleport bug that wasn't really acknowledged. Like if that happened in this game and it was the game decider, I think people would feel very differently about it.
I don't even need more transparency about the bug. I need more transparency about the decision. That's what I want. I want transparency and accountability about the decision so that it doesn't feel like, as a caster, as a host, we're dancing around it or we kind of like cover it over. It's like, this is a thing that happened and this is why we're moving on in this way. That's it. And that's nice. Like, that's nice. All right. Well, that's a lot of what's happened in the past. We've covered it all. Time to look forward, starting with LCK4 versus LPL4. Like, I think play-ins being one game is dumb, Wolf. I think this is a dumb thing. I think give the seeds to the LPL or have regular play-ins or whatever, but one play-in game is dumb. And having it between potential world's winners when later on you're going to force us to watch LCK versus Vivo Keat Stars is stupid. Like, that is dumb to me.
I can't get behind it because we also used to have, you get the extra seed if you perform well earlier in the year, right?
Yes.
We had Hanwha Life win first stand, and we had Gen.G win EWC and MSI. And then it's like, well, your region needs to fight for the 4th seed against the LPL. I'm like, well, I don't know. I think we kind of already did. I think we did. Like, yes, it was our best team, not our 4th team that was winning those tournaments. Like, at the time, Hanwha was our best team. Defending champions and all that. So it's just weird to me that this even is a consideration, and also that these 2 regions are the best regions, and that they are limited in what, like, we have to choose which one gets 4 instead of just giving both of them 4. I understand that with the format, like, if you otherwise take it away, you like could eliminate an entire region from playing in the tournament, and that's not great. But
yeah.
This format makes it so that we have to have this matchup, which I think whoever decided to do this, which is probably a team of people, but the people who decided that this would be the way to decide are probably like, but it'll be so hype though. And it's like, well, kind of, but it's just one series, and now you might not have T1 in your worlds. Like, and like T1 might have lost one best of 5 to this team and then won the whole thing in a different format, right? But now it's like, you're defending back-to-back world champions in this spot. They probably didn't expect that to happen, as none of us did when they made this. Well, they're probably sweating a little bit like, oh, T1 wasn't supposed to be there. That's not what I had in mind.
Well, yes, for sure. But I think also, like, in 2023, do you remember who played in that Worlds qualifying series? Do you remember the 2 teams? Do you remember what regions in 2023? There is the World qualifying series between 2 regions.
No, I don't remember.
Was it
NAEU? NAEU?
It was NA. It was NAEU.
Yeah, that's what I
Do you remember the 2 teams?
Was it C9?
No.
I can't remember the team.
See, I know, but that's my point. Like, that's what this match is supposed to be. It's supposed to be 2 teams that you probably don't remember getting the opportunity to see if they can make a run. It was Golden Guardians and BDS, Team BDS.
Oh my god, yeah.
And it was the gory Golden Guardians. It was the Stixay Huhi Resurgence roster. It was like a great story. Licorice back. It was a great story. And they get stopped by Gods.
Yeah, it was the Gods. It was the Gods meta, right?
Adam. It was Gods Adam, right?
Yeah.
Like, in that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what that match is supposed to be. Were Golden Guardians and Team BDS going to win Worlds? No, they weren't. But could IG / Top Esports / JDG / Weibo win Worlds? Yes. Yes, they could. Could T1 win Worlds? Could Gen.G win Worlds? Could Hanwha win Worlds? And most likely, could it have been KT?
Could KT win Worlds? Could KT win Worlds?
But still, like, that's
Would
my
Bro
point.
have won Worlds had they been here? No.
Yes, Bro could have. If Bro made it this far, Bro could have won Worlds. But that's my point. Like, it feels like in the song that is the World Championship schedule, you're starting with the beat drop right here. Like, what is this? This is so out of order. I don't like this. I don't like this for either the LPL or the LCK. This should not be the LPL or the LCK in this spot. They should have 4 seeds. I don't know who it should be. Like, is it the 3rd seed from LCP? Is it? I mean, maybe it's, hey, if you win, like, going back to your point, if you win first stand and MSI, you automatically get that seed, and then it's LCP, the second team that doesn't do that. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it should be, but I just, it feels very out of order in terms of the hype and out of order in terms of the ramping of the and who it should be in that spot.
What you could have done instead is make it a small tournament over several days amongst like 4, like it could be like a group of 4 teams, like from multiple regions, and turn it into a bigger thing where it's like, okay, 2 of these teams get out, but like, I don't know, maybe
GSL
even, Yeah, maybe even like that other LCP team, if they upset, like they could make it instead, like, and you could create a scenario like that. And then it's like, well, maybe LCP doesn't go if they don't make it out, because then you're like, well, I guess this region wasn't ever going to win Worlds. You know what I mean? Like, instead of being like the two regions that win Worlds every time are going to lose one for sure. It's like, well, maybe they'll lose it if they underperform here in a group type scenario, instead of just it's the two of them pitted against each other. I don't know. I think if you're a fan of LCK or LPL, you're just not going to like this. You know, you're just not going to like it. And I think Riot knew that it would be somewhat of a controversial decision, right, to set this up the way that they did. But like, is it hype? Yeah, it is kind of a banger. There's a lot of stakes, right? Like, it's whoever ends up casting that is going to really enjoy it. But it's it feels bad if you're an org, especially. But like, yes, you could say, well, T1 shouldn't have lost, shouldn't be here in the first place. And the same to be said of whoever ends up being the fourth LPL seed. I just know that with how these formats have gone, with how many upsets we've already had in our own playoffs, and how LPL has had so many upsets already, you just don't know that you can't succinctly know, well, this is the fourth one, so the worst one they probably won't. Like you're saying. Like any of those teams could do it.
Yeah. I'm interested because I think, going into it, I was like, man, I don't know if our fourth seed is as good as whoever the LPL's fourth seed is, because I think they have 6 good teams there. Top Esports with MVP Jackie Love and all the greatest hits that you know from earlier in the year. Kanavi's there, Cream in the mid lane, who's been now in his sophomore year, I think, or sophomore junior year here now, of just being on the stage and learning how to be the guy on a world championship caliber team. That's been a fun watch. IG obviously has the Shy and Rookie. Gala and Mako oozing with class. Wei has been a solid jungler for them, but they've been the vibes team over there and just kind of doing fun, crazy shit. Top and IG will do battle. Whoever wins that qualifies. So they're the upper bracket of this gauntlet. And then JDG has Pays and Scout. Scout has not looked great, but Pays looks really good. Like, Pays has been very fun to watch from afar. Jean has been solid for them as well. And then Weibo, you have the never aging rival of Faker, rival of, always going to Worlds. Jahu is still there in the mid lane with Light and Crisp as their bot lane. And then you've got some veteran talent in Tien and Breathe on the top side of the map. So it's JDG Weibo in single elimination there. And then winner of that plays the loser of top versus IG. So that's just a stacked bracket. I mean, if we were like, okay, yeah, it's going to be T1, KT, DPlus, and BK DRX, I'm like, oh God, like, I really hope it's T1 and someone else. And now that we're sending T1, we're like, holy shit, that is the best case scenario for an LCK team to get through. But I really like the top to bottom strength of the LPL squads there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not going to change it, and maybe they'll change it next year, but I just don't. It doesn't feel good that we don't get all 8. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel good that we don't get all 8. And for the best tournament and the best teams possible, for the 2 regions that have dominated for all time to be pitted against each other and almost, it feels like, punished in a weird way, is just strange. So, not a big fan.
Again, quick shout outs to FlyQuest leading the line over LTA North, and CFO, who's proven their worth over time, and G2, obviously, perennial powerhouse. But really, it's a prove it time for everyone else, I think. Prove it for KT as well, like, honestly. I think that's a slot and opportunity for one of those squads to break into the top 8. But, an MCOY, a KC, if they go back to yet another international event, 100 Thieves, who has a lot of veteran players there in their final run. This is you got to prove it. Got to prove it, because everyone thinks, oh yeah, we could be top 8, but we're getting rid of a team that thinks, oh, we could be world champs. So the scale is very different. All right. Well, finally, prediction time. The final 2 matches over at Inspire Arena of the LCK 2025 season. 3 teams, 1 champion, 1 legacy for our very, very long first ever single season championship. I hope we don't do it again. I hope we get spring championship back, or at least call like Road to MSI like spring champion and have a championship
I
match.
don't know what happened in the feedback meetings, but I can tell you guys there were a lot of feedback meetings recently about the
There were a lot.
So I don't know what's gonna happen next year, but I would bet big money. I would strongly I will tell people very confidently, let's say, that I think the format will not be exactly the same next year. I think there will be some changes for sure. That's my personal opinion without being in said meetings, but I know that a lot of meetings happened. And so I think everybody knows this format was not perfect, right? There were issues with the LCK Cup. They didn't even have a logo. Like, please at least give me a logo. Like, come on. But yeah, I think we'll see some changes next year.
Yeah. Pick'ems. Let's go. KT GenG.
All right. I did watch Canyon today. It was not inspiring, to be honest. Like his Skarner, he played well on the top side. Like honestly, his Skarner was gifted a few fights, but he had some good impales. He is the Skarner guy. He's the last Skarner that's left in the LCK. Like no one else plays it but him. He had some good moments there. He played Nocturne with the Vex comp, and like that's pretty simple pick. Like looked a little bit better there, but his Pantheon performance was really rough. Cuz is my boy, BDD looking insane right now. Chovy, not like really bad yesterday, but it took a little while to come online. Let's say, it's kept his perfect win rate on Galio, but it took some trying. But perfect exists. Ruler exists. Okay, these are the parts that I'm like, yeah, maybe Cuz could outdo Peanut. We don't know what form, or sorry, not Peanut, Canyon. We don't know what form Canyon's going to be on. Do we know what form Chovy's going to be on? Maybe BDD is better than him on the day, but he's still going to draft around perfect. And Ruler's still better than Duck Dom. And so, even as a very brief KT believer, I think I have to predict like 3-0, 3-1 Gen.G here. I don't think KT will be able to get it done. They got it done last time, which felt like a fluke, right? It was maybe a miracle. Canyon bad on the day. He was not great yesterday, by the way,
great.
still. So maybe it happens again, but I don't think I can predict that, if that makes sense to fans out there. Like, I don't think I can predict that it will just happen the same way a second time. KT can make some tweaks, they can make some changes, and they have a lot of time. There's a lot shorter, or a lot longer turnaround time between their last series and this one, a whole week. So maybe.
Fake ass KT fan. There it is. Boo.
I'm an analyst. I want KT to win. I will tell you guys that right now. I fucking want so badly. I'm not gonna get excited or anything, but I want them to win. I just don't think they will. You can have both, Digon. You know?
Yeah, give me 3-1.
Or I don't think they can win. 3-1?
Yeah, 3-1 because the 2 points that come out that stick out to me is that in the game that Canyon ran the game, that was a Duro game. That wasn't a Canyon game, right? Like the Skarner Canyon game. Also, I think getting away from a lot of the not flack, but just did an okay job, didn't take over the game, was Keen. Keen had an okay series, but, given the Gwen, he didn't really do a lot. It was 1-6. Eventually got to scale with the Camille later on, but Keen had an okay game. And although I think you give an advantage to Gen.G, but you also give an advantage to the form. It was one of those where it's like, okay, Peter had a bad series. He generally won't play that bad because he normally doesn't play that bad. Whereas for Canyon has been sleepy for a while, and we know how good he can be, but he's been sleepy for a while. Whereas Peter, it's like his form normally isn't that bad. So I think Peter goes back to the norm. I think Canyon goes back to his norm, which has been sleepy. And I think there's an opportunity to get a couple of games. But when it comes to draft and draft prep, like and the flexibility that Chovy is going to be able to provide and give Coach Kim, and what Score did was so uninspiring. I think that's why you get stunted there. The gameplay will get him one game, but I think the draft prep and the class that Gen.G ooze puts us at a 3-1.
Basic main easiest way to boil this down to me is, if the series is about mid jungle, KT Rolster wins the series. If the series is about drafting and team fights and macro, they don't. And I think the series is going to be about drafting and team fights and macro, because the way KT won in their upset win was through just some surprising, unusual picks and great synergy between Cousin BDD that caught Gen.G off guard in those final two games, especially like the Zoe pick and the Lissandra.
Yeah.
That you can only use those tricks like once, basically. And they used them already. And I don't think KT is going to be able to pull out something as consistently coming to this best of 5 unless they do some hard prep and BDD is like, this is what I want to do. This is how I need to draft with perfect. And, you know, I am 100% a believer of the 7-3 draft gameplay split at this high level of League of Legends that we did said yesterday. Like, I do think 70% of these games is drafting compositions. Like, can your comp do things? Does your comp have a wide variety of win conditions? Or is it just completely all in on one small one, and then you have BDD back it the fuck up with the 30% is him going ape shit on Zoe, you know? Like, that might happen, but I can't predict that to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of a miracle.
Well, I push back on, I think if it's about mid jungle, I think it's about mid jungle and bot, because this was the game, the Gen.G KT game, where we were joking backstage, like, is Duck Dom elite? Is he part of that, you know, top conversation? And I was like, hell no. And throughout that series, I was like, he's proving me wrong. Like, he played so well. They played well with the Ziggs. He played well on Yunara when they were like, hey, this is a Yunara draft, carry us to a victory. He was able to do so. And then when they close it out into Ruler's Callista, he played Ezreal. They never really gave him an opportunity to, like, you know, hop around and go crazy. And they won. Like, it was a team effort. It was a team effort. And that's why I think I'd push back a little bit on Cousin BDD, because if Cousin BDD and Canyon and Chovy play to their potential, it goes the way of Gen.G. I think the performance side is on KT's job. It is their job to play better than what is expected. And then it's Score's job to draft better than what he showed last week. Right? You have to come up with something there. So,
and that's where perfect is the one that drags you down. We talked about earlier. So,
yeah.
KT fans, you know, like myself, good luck. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's a positive outcome. I will not tell you that that's likely.
If you're around, come say hi. We'll be there on Friday for rehearsal, and I'll be around. And then, yeah, come say hi on Saturday. Might not have a chance on Sunday. I mean, according to the bracket, there is a chance, but we might not have a chance to see you on Sunday. Hanwha, are they champions against whoever they play? Does it matter who they play?
I personally don't want to definitively predict until we see what the form of the teams looks like on Saturday. Because Hanwha are coming off of a 6-game streak against a poor drafting KT and a T1 that looked a little bit lost, frankly, in draft in the previous series. I need to know some things before I can predict, like, what's the form of Canyon? How did Chovy look? What's the drafting like for Gen.G? Do they still have tricks up their sleeve, or KT throwing them off? Is KT going against Hanwha? Then I'm kind of like, nah, I think Hanwha's probably just gets it. But like for Gen.G, I need to, like, basically KT is the temperature gauge for like how I can predict what happens between Gen.G and Hanwha, because I'm not expecting KT to be in the finals, right? So
yeah.
At this point in time, though, if somebody like said, you know, gun to your head, what do you think? I'd probably say Hanwha 3-1, I think, right now. Just because Peanut looking good, Canyon still looking iffy, and Viper versus Ruler is not a massive gap. In fact, you could practically put those players almost dead even right now. So
yeah.
And then top lane it'll be hype. It'll be fun. You know, Zeus against Keen, that's always fun.
Yeah.
I just think that
Zeus against Perfect.
Zeka is also kind of a little bit clean right now. His champion pool still like what we've been calling recently the Zeka box. Like what champions does he have in there? Not a whole lot, but
That's it.
all he has to do is stay in his box for up to 5 games and be serviceable. And you know, I think they had the coordination to do it. All he has to do is be utility for Viper Life Esports. I think Hanwha should win, but I can't know yet. Like we can't know. Canyon might he had a strong latter half of that series against T1. Maybe he has an insane 3-0 performance against KT, gets POM, or we're like, damn, Canyon's we were talking about this guy's falling off, but maybe we were completely wrong. Yeah, that might happen. So it's hard to know.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right. Well, there you have it, y'all. What an episode of Monte Wolf. A shortened week, but still a lot to go in and talk about. Do you think T1 will win against any of the LPL teams? Does it matter who they play against? Let us know in the comments. Are you heading over to Inspire Arena?
I was like, yeah, I think so, Digon.
Let us know in the comments.
I'm messing up your outro.
Thanks to our friends over at Factor. Make sure to come say hi if you head on out to Inspire. It'll be a lot of fun. The Fan Festa will be going on as well. Get to check that out as we close out the final week in the LCK. Final week with Chronicler there, and final week of Peanut. Dang, final week of Barrel maybe. I mean, he won't be there. Maybe he'll be there. I don't know. But we'll see. Everyone, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for the final episode of the Monte Wolf Show. Bye-bye.